Welcome everybody. So it's like a few technical issues at the start there, but I think we're ready to go now. The meeting will be live streamed for public viewing and will be uploaded after the meeting together with a decision sheet showing the decisions taken. Okay, the live stream will begin. Should we get to the point where the press and public will be asked to leave the meeting, and we've got a number of exempt items at the end of the agenda, one definitely. If Peter wants to read out the protocol, please.
Please only speak when invited to by the chair. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand and direct all communications via the chair. Please ensure that your mics are muted when you're not speaking. If you're referring to a specific page or picture in your report, refer to the page number. If you are having technical difficulties, please use the chat function in Google Meet to alert the meeting. Please do not use the chat function for putting formal questions to the committee or to make other comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, and are there any apologies for our absence? It doesn't look like it. No? Right, okay. No urgent business that I'm aware of. Declarations of interest. Can I just say that it's on public record, but Kings Hall Leisure Centre is in my ward. Okay. So, if we can then look to the unrestricted minutes of the previous meeting of the Cabinet Procurement and Insourcing Committee on the 13th of June 2022. I won't go through them, but has anyone got any issues with them? Can we agree them as a true record then? Thank you. So then if I can move then to item number 7. Just get still item number 7. Provision of care at Lime Tree Court and St Peter's House. If I could ask, I think it's Leslie Hill to move it.
Hello.
Thank you.
I'm here today at CIPC to ask for permission to take a procurement out for the care and support at 2 of our housing with care schemes, which are Lime Trees and St Peter's Court. St Peter's House, Lime Trees Court. And also to ask for an extension to the current contract to allow us to have a 6-month mobilisation of the service once it is procured, to ensure that we have a safe and smooth transfer of care over to provide as much stability as possible to the service users. Would you like me to give you a little bit of background about Lime Trees and St Peter's? Sorry, shall I give a little background about Lime Trees and St Peter's?
I think we've all read the report, so I don't think that's strictly necessary, but obviously members are welcome to ask any items of clarification if they wish to. Are there any questions or comments on the report? Councillor Kennedy.
I think just for the sake of the minutes, Chair, it would be useful just for us to quickly remind ourselves, although it is laid out in the report, about why it's not appropriate to proceed with insourcing for these 2 schemes at the moment.
Yes. Are there any other questions or comments? No, I think, yeah, just to echo that point, that obviously the report sets out quite a complicated history around this report, and I just wanted from the chair to just reinstate our commitment to insourcing, which we would expect to be the ideal solution to this in the I think medium term we're looking at now, isn't it? Okay, any other questions or comments on it? Can we then agree the recommendations as set out in section 3 of the report? Thank you very much. So this brings us to item 8, a recommissioning programme, City and Hackney Enhanced Health Visiting Service. And I think Chris Lovett is going to introduce this report.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, my name is Chris Lovett. I'm the Deputy Director of Public Health for City and Hackney. I think we have online my colleague Angela Birch as well, who's been working on this. Just before we start, we are withdrawing recommendation 3.2, which was we were seeking permission to extend the young people's clinical health and wellbeing service contract. We are going to be bringing a paper back to this committee, I think, for the next meeting. So at this stage, we are going to withdraw that recommendation. So what's in front of you at the moment is a request to agree to procure the enhanced health visiting service, which will operate across City and Hackney. And we have a service level agreement with the Corporation of London to provide and commission services on their behalf as well. It is for a period of 5 years, the initial period of 2 years, and then +1, +1, +1. And the total value of this contract is just over £7 million a year, £35 million contract. We will be at year 2 reviewing whether there is a case for further integration of the service. And at that point, we'll also be looking at the case for insourcing. It will take us some time to develop further, I think, some of the proposals around integration of the service. We think at years 2, we will have that case to be able to make a decision as to whether we continue with the contract as is, or potentially break that contract and then look at an alternative provision. But at the moment, the service is bringing in 2 services which are currently commissioned, the health visitor service and the family nurse partnership. We're very confident that by doing so, we'll be able to improve outcomes for both City and Hackney young people by providing an integrated service. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Councillor Woodley.
Yeah, obviously all 3 of us have been engaged in this paper as it's developed in one way or another, so I guess it's for you to bring the real challenge, Councillor Chapman. But I did want to just pick up on the point around the challenges in recruitment and staffing and the impact that had on KPIs, and setting that against the ambition to cover the full 9 elements of the Healthy Early Years London programme, or HEYL programme, and just to get a bit of assurance across all services here. And you sounded very confident in your introduction, but I would like a little more assurance.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from members? Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, in a way, I'm quite relieved to hear that the recommendation 3.2 has been withdrawn, because on my list of quite an I am worried question that I had was in relation to paragraph 16.4, where it was quite clear that the legal team were not happy with the CHIPS extension that we're being asked to approve. And we need to reach a situation, obviously, where we're bringing things forward to this committee that do have legal backing to give us enough confidence to be able to vote positively on them. So I welcome the withdrawing and coming to a new approach. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Just agree with the point that Councillor Kennedy made, and also just wanted to take the opportunity to thank Angela that met with us to go through the paper in quite detail, and we were able to answer a myriad of questions there, and she was able to respond in a lot of detail to reassure us to where we are at this moment now. So thank you.
Thank you. I had just a couple of questions. Basically, as I understand the proposals, we're the number of different areas which are now being rolled up into one bigger contract, which obviously I can see the advantages of that. I just wondered, will we still, do you think, in doing that, be able to support local businesses and voluntary organisations in the way we'd expect in our sustainable procurement policy?
So thank you for both questions. Let me address them in the order they were placed. So in terms of the workforce, you're quite right that there is a crisis in the NHS in terms of many specialist roles. health visitors is one of those areas where it is hard to recruit. We have been working very hard with the current provider to make sure that they are providing us with suitably qualified staff to provide the service, and similarly with the family nurse partnership. In the new specification, we do require a number of what we're calling high impact roles, which will require qualified clinical staff to provide those. But we are also giving a little bit more opportunity for some of the other roles which may not require a health visitor to actually have a slightly different qualification or service model. So we will be working to make sure through the procurement that they are offering us the staff that are necessary to deliver the service, and the qualifications are suitable. I think it's also true to say that the NHS has been due to have a workforce strategy for many years. There doesn't seem to be a moment, confirmation of when that will come out. But as we are working very strongly in partnership with our NHS colleagues, we do work around apprentices, making sure that our local residents do see careers in the health service and the NHS as being something which that people should aspire to, and would be keen to make sure that as part of the procurement that continues around social value. So returning to your question in relation to local businesses, it is definitely one of the social values that we seek in all of our contracts, is questions around how providers will use local businesses, local procurement, to ensure that the investment that we place into public services stays as local as possible. There are some limits as to how much we can do that in order to comply with procurement legislation. But certainly the social value apprentices using local businesses is one of the method statements that we will ask and assess any provider on.
Thank you. Sorry. Are there any further questions or comments? Thank you for those answers. Okay, then. So as I understand it, recommendations on some. We could turn to the recommendations, and I understand we're now only considering the first recommendation. Yeah, so can we agree that? Well, item 3. Thank you very much. So the next item is item 9, Kings Hall Leisure Centre Design Team Services Contract Award. And I think Hayley Craig is going to introduce that. Is that right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. So Kings Hall Leisure Centre is a much loved facility, so around 380,000 visits a year. And as most of you know, it is in a deteriorating condition, and really urgent that the refurbishment project provides for a better facility for local residents into the future. And that builds on a manifesto commitment in 2018, and also Cabinet's consideration and approval to initial spend initially in terms of remedial works in June of 21, July of 21, sorry. This paper is both a business case and a contract award, with the recommendation being to appoint supplier A of the Pagabo Services framework as a direct award, and that is to provide core design team services for the duration of the project, but initially with the instruction being to planning and stage 3 design. That is the point that the project will be brought back to Cabinet to consider more holistically the financial business case and the progression of that project to any procurement. Clearly, that's appropriate given the scale of the investment that would be required in this. In terms of the alternatives that were considered, clearly we looked at a framework approach which is more in relation to a competition as opposed to a direct award, and in terms of a final tender service. Really, it is urgent that we move as expediently with an experienced team in delivering these services, and so the direct award was rated as providing those requirements. Mostly in relation to the fact that at the moment there obviously is spend on remedial works, and the sooner that we can get a coordinated team looking at both the refurbishment and sort of minimising the need for nugatory remedial works is key. The team that is being appointed also carried out the feasibility work and has an in-depth understanding of the building, particularly given its complex technical nature as a Grade 2 listed asset and the structural and roof issues it has. That continuity is key. In terms of the proposal that was brought forward by supplier A, it met the requirements of the brief. It provided benchmarked data, which proved from a best value perspective that a direct award was within the benchmark values that you would expect for a project of this nature. They provided experience that both ticked the wet leisure box and the listed building experience. And to that extent, we recommend this award. Finally, one thing I want to say is that they also put in a very comprehensive sustainable procurement proposal, which touches on all three of the elements we would expect, mostly notably in relation to net zero targets being brought into the refurbishment project by the design team, the submission of a value proposition and dedicated resource, which will be delivered as part of the KPIs and is set out in the report. And finally, obviously cultivating, not just in the team that's working with us, but in their business more generally, a diverse and inclusive work environment. So, Chair, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Well, first of all, can I welcome this report particularly? But though we've got to be careful given the interest I declared earlier. Does any members got any questions or comments on it? Councillor Woodley.
I think we'll all welcome. Obviously, if anyone's been to visit King's Hall, they'll know it desperately needs this work to be done. I think there are some assurances here by the fact that the team has done such a remarkable job at Britannia, so we know it will be in safe hands. And we will have an opportunity, if you see 9.3, to review our commitments when it comes to stages 4 to 7 before we kind of commit to further expenditure. So this feels like a very safe and reassuring process, and obviously support it 100%.
Thank you. Councillor Kennedy, then Deputy Mayor Bramble.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've seen the basement of King's Hall. I welcome this report. I do want a quick bit of reassurance, though. I'm sure it's okay, but I don't quite understand how the Pagabo framework works in order to ensure that you can't be challenged. Clearly, I'm very confident we're doing the right thing. We've chosen the right provider. How does Pagabo give us the assurance that no one from outside can come in and say, oh, you shouldn't be doing it this way?
So from a, as per all frameworks, it was procured publicly as a framework, and the providers that are on that framework went through the quality and cost and financial standing requirements. So it has the assurances of being a legal framework to that extent, that as an authority we can call off. The lot that we're procuring off in the professional services framework, lot 1, is for multidisciplinary lead design services, which the supplier is providing. And that specifically is there to provide a one-stop shop where they can bring on board subcontracted design team members to augment their lead design. And that's the way that we're procuring this. So it allows that flexibility inherently within lot 1. It's not that you're going for one specific service and then have to procure another service through a different route. So it very much is a one-stop shop lead designer service. And for this, we have procured specifically the core design team, which obviously we've pre-selected. We will work with them for any ancillary services that are required to support planning, as you'd expect, and in line with the protocols for procurement in terms of quotes to be received for those smaller, more minor services that will augment the planning application.
Thank you, Councillor Deputy Mayor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. Like so many others, I've visited that facilities over a number of years, and our recent visit, where I accompanied you, Councillor Kennedy and Councillor Lynch, and the Mayor to look around, it's really interesting because it's a much loved facility and much needed facility, but actually needing a lot of work. So just some reassurance and confidence that the timescale that was set out to do this work will meet that timescale. And what are the risks or sort of financial impact of the cost of doing business now in light of all the changes, whether it's Brexit, the rise in prices around cost of living and materials, just some reassurance about the timeline and the cost of the much needed venture that we're embarking upon. I
think in terms of the first question and timescale, Supplier A submitted quite a detailed programme for the works to be completed up until actual handover, not just until the planning submission. And we have timed the cabinet review for the early 2024 to be at a point where we have sufficient design information for cabinet to properly consider the cost and the implications of moving forward. And as you know, it is a relatively standard process design-wise to that point. The only thing that would disrupt that would be if, from a client perspective, the requirements changed. So I think it's within our gift to control the timeline and to give a clear brief as to what we need. Clearly, there is a challenge of the funding for this scheme, and that's why we will bring it back to Cabinet once we've explored that further. And I think that on your second point, in terms of the cost, very much, you know, that is the reason for this piece of work and the reason for that break for us to consider at Cabinet before going forward.
Thank you very much. We've now got move to recommendations in the report in section 3. Can we agree those? Okay. We've now got thank you very much, and you know, we welcome future reports on this as the project progresses. We've now got a series of reports here which are sort of part of our requirement to update us on progress with the insourcing items, starting off with the insourcing of gully cleansing and winter maintenance services. And I think, yes, Sam Kirk is going to introduce this report. Sam.
Thank you, Chair. This paper is for information only and details the mobilisation of the gully cleansing service, which was brought back in-house on the 1st of April 2020, and also the winter maintenance service, which was brought back in-house on the 1st of October 2020. There was no issues with the mobilisation of either of those services. We purchased 2 winter maintenance vehicles and 1 gully cleansing vehicle, and we've trained up operatives to use both of those. There was a need to do some additional data cleansing work for the gully cleansing, and that has resulted in a clean and a very accurate data set of around 14,000 gullies, which we're using going forward. The savings have been made on both services, and these are detailed on page 87 of the report. And moving these services in-house has resulted in a number of advantages, including quicker response times, no call-out charges, more regular cleaning of areas such as our markets. We've also got the flexibility with our working hours, improved KPIs, and local knowledge to address specific issues that come up. In terms of next steps, we're automating the data transfer to the council's CLIC, so we can analyse the data, which will include mapping things such as emergency responses, which will mean that we can go and do some proactive work in terms of clearing gullies for those areas that are prone to flooding. And for example, mapping where we've missed some gully cleansing, and we can then identify how we can work with parking to gain access to those. I'm happy to take any questions from anybody.
Councillor Woodley.
Yeah, I'm very interested in where those gully clearances will be increased from annually. I see in some cases you're doing them twice annually already, and when that would come in and what impact that would then have on those savings.
Sorry, my internet cut out a little bit then, Councillor Woodley. Can you repeat the beginning bit of the question?
Essentially, when we would get clarity on where you might increase those gully clearances, I see we already have most of them annually, some of them twice annually, but obviously with the adverse weather and issues that we faced already this year, we've got keen interest in this, where it might increase, when we'll find out that that's the case and what that does to our sort of, you know, the general savings that were sort of set out in the paper. I recognise there was a contingency written in, so I'm hoping that's not a massive worry, but
it's not a massive worry. The mapping work is ongoing at the moment. We've already, in terms of the flooding that's recently happened, we were already I know that we did have issues around response times. I know that some queries are put in with regards to that, but we're currently developing that, getting that information. With regards to the winter maintenance, we've not had a severe winter yet, but it's not going to impact so much on the budget. We can cover that. because we're well within budget at the moment, and there is actually a reserve set aside for winter maintenance anyway. With regards to the gully cleansing, I can contact you separately and get a timescale for that, and either report back here or report back directly to you, Councillor Woodley.
Thank you. Is there any other questions? Or are there any questions? Yeah, I am just on section 6, the Procurement for Better Society. It says payment of London living wage. On the never assumed basis, I just want to check, has that now been implemented?
Section 6 on the gully report, yes. We pay above London living, yes, because we pay above the London living wage.
The middle section of section 6, yeah?
Yeah, we do pay London living wage. They'll be getting paid more than that.
Great. I welcome this report, and it seemed to me like it was good news. But I confess I had a little bit of difficulty extracting that from the report. You know, some clarity about whether we'd save money or not. I think we have saved quite a substantial amount of money, but it doesn't actually leap out of you.
Yes, we have.
Can we have a figure on that in total?
The gully
right now.
Oh, right, so I can say, and the gully cleansing service in year 1 cost us 130,000 against 200,000 previously, and the winter maintenance in year 1 cost us 30,500 against a minimum of 100,000 pounds previously, because there was an additional call out charge on that, and depending on how much the winter gritting road per kilometre charge was. The winter gritting, like I said, we haven't had a severe winter yet. So if we get a severe winter, then the costs of that will increase. But there is a reserve to cover that, but it's well within budget.
Okay, so it's not, you can't really tell yet because we haven't had a severe winter.
We've not had a severe winter.
We don't. Okay, thank you. I may quote you on that. Thank you very much. That's really helpful. That's good. Okay then, so if we can, I think we just asked to note the report, are we? Sorry, has anyone else got any questions or comments? Can we then note the report? Thank you very much, and congratulations on that. The next one is the update on the it's my title to it. It's the cleaning contract, isn't it? Item number 12. So I think, is it Nuru Raman sorry, I'm item 11. Yeah. So if I could ask Tim Bretherick to introduce the report, please.
Afternoon. Hopefully the report has already been read and is fairly self-explanatory, but what happened, our hand was forced because our FM contractor, which had been part of the LEP agreement, walked away, and we were actually sort of forced to take the service in-house, which we did, made all the necessary preparations, and eventually had a Tubi transfer, which was on January the 19th, 2020. It's subsequently been operating in-house since. We've managed to make efficiencies. The service now isn't like for like when it was with the LEP, purely because the FM staff transferred to the schools, and all the cleaning and other support services came to the council. But I think it's fair to say that where the productivity and performance of the staff has improved from when it was being operated by a third party. To preempt any questions, we are paying London living wage. We're waiting to find out when the newest announcement of the 10% or 10.1% increase is going to be implemented from. There was some apparent confusion last year because we have historically paid it from the 1st of April, but last year it was decided to be paid from I think 14th November. So we're waiting to find out how it's to be implemented this year. I haven't really got anything further to add, and unless there are any questions raised by anybody, so open to the floor.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor Kennedy?
The paper says we left the legal compliance services contracted out. I wondered if there were plans to bring them back in.
Well, we operate the legal compliance services via subcontractors, but because they're such specialist services, it's best and most cost effective to use specialist contractors rather than try and employ these specialists yourselves, because quite often if you employ, let's say, building management services individual directly, they're not necessarily fully employed. So it's much more cost effective to actually contract those services out, which is what we do. We're currently in the process of renewing this agreement, which is slated to start on the 1st of April next year. And we're looking to let it for a 3+1+1 contract, which hopefully will enable us to get some sort of additional sort of efficiencies, and also get some long-term commitment from the contractors we're proposing to employ.
Deputy Mayor Bramble.
Thank you, Chair. Just to build on Councillor Kennedy's point, I suppose a discussion point of topic is always with officers around our commitment to insource, building on our manifesto commitments. And the hope would be the more schools that we're able to deliver the service for, that can change where you can afford to have those specialist workers that work on a particular niche part here and deliver that service. So as possibly the desire from other schools joins, then that can change. But that's something that I'm always talking about and asking officers to reassure me, because actually where we can insource, it's really imperative that we do so. But it's also about amalgamation of scales, and if more schools join that, the more we can deliver in-house through specialist teams.
Yep. And now I would add that currently we provide the services to 10 BSF schools. We are looking to try and encourage other schools to, or particularly the primary schools, to come and take the compliance services from us, because I think we have a great deal to offer. We can help the schools a great deal, and I think we can be far more cost effective. And with that view in mind, I'm appearing at one of the head teachers and bursars forums very shortly to try and sell the services that we can offer. And if that is the case, we can get a lot more schools on board, then we could well justify employing specialist individuals ourselves, sort of technicians, and particularly thinking about things like fire risk assessments, sort of water treatment, all the things that are an ongoing and very regular sort of occurrence that we could actually employ people directly for.
Thank you. Are there any further comments or questions on this? Okay, if I could just thank you for the report. Again, it's great to see the insourcing proceeding so effectively. But it would be, I think, really helpful. I was particularly noting the section of the report about next steps. So it would be really helpful if we can have an update on this here, at the appropriate point in the future, when some of these developments you're setting out and next steps have taken place. Is that okay?
Yes, of course. I mean, the next sort of major step is going to be the harmonisation of all the terms and conditions of the duly transferred staff, and the implementation of the new contract as of the 1st of April, because at that stage we'll understand exactly who's coming on board. I have a feeling from the research and discussions we've had so far, it looks as though all 10 BSF schools are going to come on board with us. But as I previously alluded to, I would very much like to be able to get a number of primary schools, we have so far about 5 who've expressed an interest, but as you probably know, there's a mile of difference between sort of expressing an interest and actually putting their signature on the dotted line. So we're working on them. But yes, I'd be more than happy to provide an update, say just after Christmas, if that would be appropriate.
That sounds all right to me, but I won't put an absolute date on it.
No, okay.
Okay. If I could ask members to, unless there are any further comments or questions, to note the report. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Second up. Move to item 12, which is the building cleaning. Insourcing. So it's Nuru Rahman, I believe, is going to introduce this.
I believe, Chair, it should be Sam Kirk, the report author.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
I believe it's Sam Kirk who's going to be introducing the report.
Hey, if so, Sam.
Yeah, yes, I'm going to introduce this report. This is another paper for information only and details the mobilisation of the insourcing of the building cleaning contract, which was brought in-house on the 1st of January 2021. All but 3 of the staff transferred over to Hackney terms and conditions. So I want to actually say that Savita were very cooperative in the process, which greatly helped in the move. And we've had the smooth running of the service throughout COVID, because we've had like changes in government legislation, offices closing, not as many people coming through, and then the NHS using some of the buildings. So the services run smoothly throughout all of that. There were a number of initial options proposed for the service, but following a deeper review and assessment, these have not been taken forward. And they're set out on page 101 of the report. And they included moving to different shift patterns, but it was deemed that it would be quite a fundamental change to the jobs of people, especially if some people work different shifts around second jobs and care provision and other responsibilities. There was also proposals for the posts to become more generic across the wider service, but again, on looking at that, it became less viable when analysing the nuances of the various activities between the building cleaning operatives and our environmental operatives, not least the generic across the service in terms of that they do street cleansing and also could be a loader for refuse or recycling vehicles. And at the time we were looking at this, the estate cleaning staff don't have the capacity to extend their remit for incorporating some of the like concierge services in that. We're currently doing a wider review of the service, so along with that we'll look at how we can incorporate building cleaning changes going forward. Table 1 in section 3.5, which is on page 102, sets out areas for improvements and the actions that we've taken since moving the service in-house. In terms of savings, in year 1, the £75,000 savings target was achieved, and in year 2, we're on course to achieve that savings targets. But we do need to bear in mind that there has been some buildings that are closed, in part due to COVID, in part due to renovations taking place, and more people are coming back into the office now. Performance hasn't been impacted by the transfer in-house, and KPIs have been achieved where possible. And again, some of these KPIs have been impacted because of the COVID. In terms of next steps, building cleaning is under review to see if it continues as it is, or whether the structure needs amending, and then how, as I mentioned earlier, how that interacts with our other services. We also want to review the targets and KPIs, including around health and safety, because we carried over the KPIs and targets from Savita, but there's things around, and we want to bring it more in line with what we've got across the service. So, for example, we don't want any RIDDOR reported accidents, but then we want to mitigate about and report on those health and safety incidents that are lower level to try and mitigate against any becoming RIDDOR further down the line. And then we'll be working with facilities management and the longer term arrangements. Now more and more people are coming back into the office. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? I just had to, on page 104 of the table and section 5.3, just the staff owner turnover figures looks a bit odd. So you've got a target of 60%, which seems enormous, and then achieved 8.3. Is that correct?
It's from Servest. We questioned it as well, so we carried over the targets from Servest, and it is very high. And again, that's why we want to undertake a review of the targets and KPIs.
Okay, thank you. So can we note that report? Thank you very much. So that brings us towards the end of the ordinary agenda. So if I could just note that there is no other unrestricted business, but we have a restricted item in a minute. And I'm asked to read out the dates of future meetings, which are the 7th of November 22, the 5th of December 22, the 16th of January 23, 13th of February 23, 13th of March 23, starting at 4 p.m. it says here, 17th of April 23. So if you could note those. Okay, so if I could now move the exclusion of the press and public, and I need to read this out, don't I, Peter? Yeah. So can we ask that the press and public be excluded from the proceedings of the Cabinet Procurement and Insourcing Committee during consideration of the exempt items on the agenda on the grounds it is likely, in the view of the nature of the business to be transacted, that were members of the public to be present, there will be disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972 as amended. Yeah. Okay.